if you're caring for a family member or a loved one that has Alzheimer's or dementia or is mentally incapacitated, you need to hear this video. This could be a lifesaver. Not more than 5 minutes ago, I just had a lady walk out our door here. And for those of you who don't know, we are a security company primarily. We've been in security for 22 years. And one of the things we also are is we are a government subcontractor. That's the easiest way to say it. We do upwards of 80 background checks a day. We've done thousands and thousands of background checks over the last 5 years. That for us is coming to a close because the other part of the business has gotten so busy that we have to focus on some other things. But this is an important topic, and it doesn't just focus on those that have dementia or Alzheimer's or are mentally incapacitated. That's what we're going to focus on today for this brief topic. This can go outside that for those who have been institutionalized for drug or alcohol abuse. We get a number of calls from attorneys now where they've had a person, either they're indicted, they have some type of a legal problem where they can't be around guns, can't own guns, and so those people have no alternative but to either give them up, give them to a family member. A lot of times they'll have expenses, which we'll cover briefly today. They'll have expenses outside of normal everyday living that require them to liquidate some things so they can pay attorney's fees. However, today I'll tell you about two stories, and one of them is very personal to me. My dad was a gun collector, not a super huge avid gun collector. I know people who who have thousands of guns. But my dad had a little less than 100 guns. He had some very valuable guns. And at 65, he retired from being an attorney. We thought he was going to go into practice doing some mediation, but it became very apparent at about that same age that he had some dementia problems. More than just losing keys like I do, more than just, forgetting when you set your phone down. It was pretty significant. And over the years that followed, it became a concern that he did have so many guns in the house. I came home on one occasion to visit my parents, and there was a new dent around the door frame in the kitchen, very noticeable, in the wood. And I said to my mom, I said, "Hey, what happened?" She said, "Well, your dad lost his temper and he threw a pot across the kitchen and it hit the door frame." I said, "Well, what did you do?" She said, "Well, he didn't mean to do it. Like he didn't really know what he was doing. At this point, his Alzheimer's had gotten kind of advanced." I said, "Mom, you can't live like this. Like, you can't live in a house like this and live under these concerns." We did not do with my dad what we should have done because we didn't want to fight. He was still a strong-willed person, very difficult to deal with. But my dad's guns should have been taken away long before we had him institutionalized. We didn't Baker Act him. We were able to do it a little bit differently. But the violence that my dad was capable of, he played football at Vanderbilt. He was a big guy. And even until he was institutionalized, could still play tennis. It was very sad. But I'm going to tell you about another story, and I will not tell you who, how, when, where, what, or why, because my information about clients that we have needs to be kept private. But this is important for you to know. A lot of Alzheimer's and dementia patients deal with anxiety. They deal with depression. They deal with things that you or I may be able to cope with a little bit better, but because of their diminished mental capacity, they're unable to. A lady at a facility that we've done some work for, she was in a long-term care facility, still considered independent living, kind of, and had some anxiety, depression that no one really understood. She went home for the weekend with her kids, spent the weekend in her normal house, was able to take a gun from her house back to the long-term care facility, and she ended her life with that same gun inside the long-term care facility. So no matter where you think the capacity of your loved one is that has dementia or Alzheimer's, I really want you to understand that once that diminished capacity is there, guns really need to come out of their hands. You don't know what they're capable of. You don't understand what's going on because that takes so many twists and turns. And I'm not an expert in that area. I'm only an expert in the gun area. So I'm only going to tell you from my personal experience, when that happens, you need to take take the guns out of their hands. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but I'm going to give you just a few highlights of some legalities that you need to think about. Every state's laws are different. Some states are going to require that you have a conservatorship, basically that you've taken custody of that person who has that diminished capacity, whether it's a parent, an uncle, an aunt, someone in your family, or sometimes it's even somebody outside of your family that doesn't have extended family members. But some states are going to require that you have a conservatorship. Others will just take a limited power of attorney or medical power of attorney. You need to check with your state if you are considering doing this. But there are people who deal directly with Alzheimer's patients and dementia patients every single day. And they understand, really you should start the conversation like a decade before. If you know somebody that's in the family that has a lot of guns, that has a lot of things that they consider family heirlooms, and they love those things, you need to have whatever happens one day, if you ever have an issue like this, do you have a power of attorney? Do you have something that will assist us in helping you? Because the conversation you don't want to have is like the one I had with Lady's husband about 2 years ago. She called us. He was not being violent often, but occasionally would have outbursts. She called us. She said, "Hey, I have a number of guns in the house. I'm concerned that my husband, has the potential to hurt me or hurt someone else, even if it's just accidentally." So I said, "Have you broached the conversation with him?" And she said she had not. I said, "Okay, here's what I suggest that you do. My suggestion is you find a financial reason to talk him into selling a few of his guns." And she came up with the fact that they didn't need the roof repaired, but they needed some repair work done on the roof of the house. They needed some money for that. Was he okay selling some of the guns? He said, "Oh, I can't get on the roof." He couldn't get on the roof anymore, right? So I went out to the house, and it was kind of an uncomfortable position for me because there's an Alzheimer's patient walking in with some. This is how I'd rather not do this, but this is one of the incidences that I had. He came out with a gun, and my first thing was, "Oh, let's make sure it's not loaded." He said, "Oh no, I will unload all my guns." Well, I popped the magazine out, which had bullets in it. I pulled the bolt back, and the bullet fell out. And so we eliminated that one there. After that, all the guns we checked for her. Brought those into our facility. A lot of them are antiques. We do not do firing tests on antique guns inside of our facility, although I would like to because some of them are really cool. Right now we have about 50,000 guns in stock. You're welcome to look at our website and see it. There's also, what I'm getting ready to tell you about, there's also a posting on the website of how to submit guns for consignment if you have a loved one who you need to liquidate some guns for. But anyway, we took all those guns, brought them into the shop. We did not test for all of them. Some of them were truly antiques. We do take minimal cleaning on guns. We'll bring them in, make sure that they are presentable for sale. A lot of times we will put notes when they are for sale online that says, "Hey, completely functional, non-functional, unknown." But here's the thing to consider as a family member is not only the safety piece for the loved one, family member, not only your own safety, but quite often, long-term, some of those individuals are going to need care, whether it's in-home care, whether it's in a facility, whether it's just day-to-day medical. But the last thing you want to have is to deal with something after a shooting. It's just, we've dealt with that. I cannot tell you how difficult that is for families to have to deal with something like that after the fact. So on our website, I'm going to put the links below. If you would like to consider consigning guns, this is something that you have going on, make sure in your state that you have met the legal guidelines for this. Quite honestly, you will find a lot of attorneys can be very, very helpful if you're trying to do something like that. Ask an attorney, but make sure it doesn't require at least a conservatorship, limited power of attorney, or medical power of attorney, something like that. Quite often a diagnosis has to be in place before you can take these guns and just liquidate them. But on our website, there's a link. It has an electronic sign-off. There's a place to put in 25 guns. Once you put that information in and submit it, then we will reach back out to you. There's several ways to get them to us. Obviously, if you're in Tennessee, it's fairly easy for us to consider picking them up. If you're out of state, a lot of times they have to be shipped. We will take shipped-in guns. We do require that there be a valid driver's license, state-issued current driver's license that comes with that. But once that comes in, we take the guns in our shop. One of our experts, or even myself, sometimes I'll do this. We have software that we use to tell how many of those guns have sold in the last couple of years, what the price range was for those. More times than not, we have pictures of those guns, we have the condition of those guns listed, and then we have a number of reference books that we can go to as well. So we have a couple of ways to decide, what the value of those items can be. And listen, we've had things that range from, I've got a gun on consignment right now, it's a $120 gun, it's not worth much money. But we've had other ones that were in excess of $5,000. If you have Parker Brothers, you have something that is truly a family heirloom, those things can be worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and that can go towards long-term care help, regular bills, and it will certainly alleviate the possibility of somebody in your house being harmed or shot. And no one wants to have to deal with that. Look, we've been in business 22 years. You can trust us. I think you can look at our ratings online and see that we do a phenomenal job of this. We'd love to help take care of your family. We'd love to help take care of items that are a little bit difficult to get rid of. And the last thing is, if the family's trying to come together around this, let me be careful how I deal with this. This particular topic. The family should be willing to and able to come together to deal with this. However, oftentimes when there's money involved, if there's more than one sibling, a lot of times things are not as clear-cut and dry as you would like them to be. So this makes a very simple path to say, hey, why don't we just do this? We will have someone else liquidate them. Then we have a dollar figure to deal with rather than deciding who gets what. And quite honestly, until that person is no longer with us, it's the responsibility of those who are caregivers to take the assets of that person and put that money towards good use for that person. It's not ours to begin. It's not ours to begin to decide what to do with until that person no longer needs care. I hope this helps. We're very honest. Again, there's links below on this, and we would certainly love to help you with any liquidation you need. Please, hey, like and subscribe. We'd love that. Thank you.